Bienvenue de retour pour cette dernière séance.
Welcome back. Welcome back to this last session.
Non.
Can we switch to the Mentimeter? So, I asked in an attempt to summarize the previous session, what are your expectations? And the answers I got was to ask the youth. So now we have young people here with us. So we will be able to ask what they think, to ask for their ideas. And we will try to take a deep dive into this debate. Is it that easy to be young nowadays? I'm sure that this will be a very interesting question. All right, so we have with us online three participants, Andeye Mayediang, Sakina Bawa, and Nia Sidani Christian Ouattara. May we have them on the screen as well so that we are now a group of 6 speakers. Hello, good afternoon. Can you hear us? Yes, hello, I can hear you. How are you? Well, I am doing great. And what about you? Yes, I'm doing fine as well. The Minister for Development had to be here, but she wanted the youth to attend the COP27. And so she asked Annabelle to appoint young people to attend the COP meeting so that their voices could be heard and so that they can have some influence in a way. Daniela Tilbury said this yesterday. What the youth wants is not only to be heard, but they would like to be able to change decisions. They would like to have an influence on decisions. So we have there 3 persons online. From the Youth Forum, we have Lino, who is here with us, as well as Selene. I think that you are in a way a body representing youngsters. We also have Ute representing the Be Global project, which was also presented in the previous session, I believe. The eco-citizenship in Belgium. So, Lino, I will start with you. Could you please, yes, introduce yourself? Can you hear me? Yes. My name is Lino Paoletti, Youth Forum, and I am the United Nations delegate on biodiversity. So I try to share the youth voice, not only here in Belgium, but also at the international level in attending UN conferences, namely the COP meetings. So I do work as a volunteer, so this is my personal commitment on top of what I have to do as a young worker. Well, I started to work last year, so it's not even 2 years. So thank you very much to you, Lino Paoletti. Ute. Yes, I will switch to English.
For Action. We are a climate action collective with people from all over the world, especially Nigeria, India, the United States, the UK, and Belgium. And we want to change the policy of the COP27 by sending postcards to world leaders. And we also want to influence them in other big events, such as the World Economic Forum.
Great. Thank you very much.
Hello, Ndeye. Can you hear us? Yes, I can hear you. What about you? Now, internet seems to work. Could you please introduce yourself? Who are you? My name is Ndeye Mayediang. I am a student in technology. I am in charge of many environment-related partnerships. I am a COP27 youth delegate.
D'accord. Et vous allez aussi aller à la COP 27.
So you are going to attend the COP27.
Et qu'est-ce que vous espérez obtenir de la COP 27?
What are your expectations?
Bon, déjà, nous, on a un side event à animer là-bas. D'autant plus que c'est la première fois qu'on organise un COP en Afrique, si je ne me trompe pas. Donc, j'espère vraiment que la jeunesse...
It is the first time that we'll be able to organize an event in the framework of COP27. Okay, thank you.
Merci beaucoup.
So, Sakina, can you hear us?
Présentez, juste pour savoir.
Could you please introduce yourself so that we know who you are, what you do, and why you are here? Okay, so my name is Sakina Bawa. I am Nigerian. I am a student in technology, climate change, and rural transformation in the West African Science, Climate Change, and Land Use Program. I am also a youth climate activist. I am a member of an NGO based here in Niger, and I do work with associations active in the environment. I was also appointed to attend the COP27 to represent the Sahel. So in the forthcoming weeks, we'll be able to represent the Sahel, and we will bring the youth voice and the voice of all young climate activists. It's always difficult for the youth to be heard. So thank you very much, Sakima. So you are an activist. What is the last activity you conducted? What is the last activity you organized to promote your cause? We've lost you, or at least we've lost your audio, but you are on mute. I think that you are on mute.
Non.
Yes, we can hear you now. The last activity was a climate caravan that is organized before the COP. You have national caravans, you have continental one. So this was the last activity we organized from the 10th to the 15th. So we were there with a group of youngsters, and we would go and visit many regions in my country, Niger. So this was just in the run-up to the COP. All right. Thank you. Thank you very much. Now, Céline, the floor is yours. You represent also the UN Youth Dialogue, the Youth Forum. My name is Céline Honour. I am a European Youth Delegate. This is a participative process lasting 18 years, so we are now at mid-term, and this is the 9th cycle of European Youth Dialogue. I essentially work on inclusivity, sustainability, and everything linked to information infrastructure. And recently we organized national consultations, and I might say a word about this a little bit later. Okay, thank you. So there are 3 themes on which I'd like to have an exchange with you. First of all, the skills. What are the needed skills? What did the conference give you? Or what are the take-home messages? Are you happy about what you heard? Or are you worried and do you think that there's still a long and winding road? And then a third theme, your commitment.
Première question par Mentimeter.
Okay, a first question on the Mentimeter.
Certains peut-être sont encore des jeunes, mais d'autres pas du tout.
Some of you might still be young, whereas others might not be so young anymore. So, as a young person,
Quelque chose que vous vous dites, ah,
what skill
j'aurais dû avoir,
would you have loved to learn as a young person,
j'aurais dû
but did not learn until later?
j'aurais dû avoir
So, what are the skills that you would have liked to learn and that you only learned at a later stage?
comment rester jeune plus longtemps.
Being a leader, being assertive,
Le system thinking, hein,
the system thinking,
comment vivre plus
critical thinking, how to live in a more sustainable way, having more self-confidence, change,
la situation actuelle du climat.
the current climate situation. Well, it's not really a skill, is it? I think that this is something that, we know, that we've known for 50 years. Being heard, ecology, once again, critical thinking, advocacy.
Voilà, le plaidoyer, merci. Je vais demander
All right, so
est-ce que c'est quelque chose que vous reconnaissez?
this is a question for you. Do you recognize those skills? Do you think that those are the skills needed as we speak to advance climate change? Jutta.
Well, yeah, I agree. Like it's definitely something we as young people try to achieve. About the current situation of this climate crisis, the urgency, I would say that's something that is really important to learn as young people, but take in account that we are from a different time in the sense that we are living now in a time where there is a lot of awareness for this, while I think for some people in this room who were younger, the media and other educational systems were not picking up on this theme, which also means that it's very important in education today to focus on the urgency of the climate crisis. So in that sense, I'm hopeful, but also not hopeful in this because it's not enough right now.
Okay, and what is the competence, what is the skill behind that you think, that's what we need, that's what I have that I can bring into this discussion to kind of...
Good question. I think the first competence you need for this is have an open mind and be eager to learn. And I think that's something that's sometimes easier for young people. And I would encourage everyone who is not young anymore to keep learning and keep your mind open for these things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So open mind, eager to learn is something he said, how to stay young. That would then be kind of the thing that you need to do in order to stay young. Yeah.
Yeah.
Célène,
I will do it in English if you don't mind. So I agree completely with Jutta, and I would like to add on a funnier note, I wish that I recognize that decision makers are mere mortals. And sometimes we as young people kind of are impressed by them, but we shouldn't be. And it should be kind of a power tool that we use. We shouldn't be impressed by ourselves about what we do as a young generation already and what has not been done in the past. I mean, look at this weekend, there's a climate strike on Sunday. So I think we should all be impressed by our own work and continue on that. And I also wish that we would stop the greenwashing.
Okay, what is greenwashing?
For me is, let's say when the decision makers or any other public figure gives the impression that they're doing something good for the climate, whether, I mean, in the backstage is the effects are kind of devastating.
Now, Daniela yesterday kind of said, okay, greenwashing, we should stop that in education because it also happens there.
Yes.
Almost saying that many of the projects that we have seen these 2 days, you might ask yourself, is this greenwashing or not? Are we doing enough there? How do you, I mean, greenwashing can be, oh yeah, it's it's kind of you're picking up the litter. That's kind of greenwashing. And you can, on the scale of greenwashing, you can say, no, this is greenwashing, and above that it's fine. Or you can say, no, this is greenwashing, and above that it's fine. Do you see what I?
Yeah, but I wouldn't put a scale on greenwashing though, because I think greenwashing overall is bad.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. So it's all, yeah. So we really have to be careful not to go into that greenwashing, kind of doing that transformational type of, okay.
Do actions.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Alors, je vais voir, je sais que NDA, vous nous entendez?
All right, let me quickly go back to NDA. Can you hear us? Yes, I can hear you. What are, according to you, the skills needed, or what are the main skills when addressing climate change? We see that the pace is really very fast. So, well, I think that first and foremost, we need to understand what climate change is. It is important to recognize the impact of climate change. We have to tell people that climate change is a reality. There are still many people who do not understand, who do not come to grip with this concept of climate change.
Après, c'est pas forcément des gens qui vont à l'école ou ce n'est pas quelque chose qui est intégré dans nos systèmes éducatifs.
Of course, we know that sometimes this information is not included in our curricula at schools, and you also have people who are not educated, and I believe that we need to raise awareness. All right, so this understanding is a first step, but do you think that we are going fast enough? What can we do to raise awareness? We know that climate change is here, there are risks. What are the mitigating measures? And we need to promote the information on all those questions. We need also to explain to people what actions they can take. Okay.
Merci. Sakina.
Sakina, according to you, what is the thing, the skill that young people need the most today to promote environmental awareness? We have to do capacity building with young people, because we know that half of the world population is young. So if we want to really deal with environmental awareness, we have to work with young people and also increase the budget. We have to help them to design sustainable projects that integrate the environmental dimension. So we mainly have to do capacity building with young people. And do you have the feeling that people are listening to you? Well, yes, I think that there are more and more young people involved. And we also have a lot of young people who are very involved. They are activists. So there are reasons to hope. You refer to the climate caravans. What means of transportation are you using? Well, we use a bus because distances are quite long. Once we are in the village, we walk with T-shirts and banners, just to draw the attention of people and to raise awareness. And what would you need? What are the skills that you need? And I also ask the question here in the room for you to adapt to climate change. When I was young, adaptation was not on the agenda because it was so long, so far away, so distant. But now it's very different. So what would you need to adapt quickly? To adapt quickly, well, the problem is that climate change is something which is uncontrollable. We have to adapt to the rise in temperature. In the Sahel region, we are used to have high temperatures, but now maybe we have to use, I don't know, renewable energies to cool down the place. Maybe we're going to opt for renewable energies to adapt to climate change. We have to find something that can mitigate the impact of climate change. And renewables are, to me, the way to go. Reduce consumption and use renewable energies. As a young person, I promote renewable energies, and I'm also preparing myself psychologically to the future, to the fact that the world is going to become a place where it will be difficult to live. For instance, in your region, in the Sahel region. In the meantime, there is a question on Menti. What would you like to ask to young people when we talk about climate change and education? Lino, regarding adaptation, what is necessary according to you? Knowing that the climate is changing at a very high speed. Let me go back to what we said before. The fact that we are always learning things and getting better. We know that alone we will not find a solution as human beings. We have to use natural resources. So we have to always better understand the living environment, the surroundings. This is something which is missing today in our education pathway. In my generation, we were not told about how things are growing. This very simple thing, the cycle of plants growing. So this is very basic, but it's necessary. This is something that you are always also doing today, indeed. And how did you do? Well, I'm followed training sessions about nature, about the different cycles according to the subjects that we like from a very personal point of view. We try to see how we can work together with the living environment, with nature. As a delegate for biodiversity for the UN, how do you work? How can you translate this into practice? We conducted a survey on environmental awareness. The question was, are we going to review curriculums or pedagogical tools or programs based on comments made by young people? And finally, what we had as a result is that the fact that we have to change our methods of teaching. For instance, having a garden at school to show to students how it works, practically speaking. How can we, from a local point of view, understand the things and understand that we are destroying things as well? I think there is a problem with the presentation. I'm not sure that we will be able to show the presentation.
Maybe something. I think there are two things that are very important in being able to adapt to climate change. First of all, is a network of people who you feel safe with and have the same ideas, because it's so scary what's coming and what's happening already. I mean, it's 20 degrees right now. We're October. This is not normal. I'm scared today. And the second thing is something, there has to be enough mental health support for everyone. So I think the government and schools and all public organizations play a big role in this, because we will need more psychologists, we'll need more people who will try to, not make us all depressed, because when you all are depressed, you won't change anything, because then it makes you feel, how do you say that? Like you don't want to change anything because you don't have the energy for that. So we need a good balance between mental health stability so that we can change and hopefully change enough.
Are we able to do that? Because that's a lot. We have to change the way we kind of operate, less kind of this extracting way, more natural way. We are getting very anxious. You're getting scared, basically. So eco-anxious. So we need more psychologists. We need people kind of doing things with plants. We need. So are we able to make that change? Are you confident in that?
You're asking me. I'm just a 21-year-old girl. I think, I don't know, actually, but I think we should keep trying to make a change. And I'm hopeful in the sense that a lot of people are trying to do that. But I'm also worried because it's not changing fast enough. And a lot of people and companies who are in power are not willing to make that change because they are going to lose their jobs or going to lose their power position. I'm thinking about big companies as Shell, or I'm thinking about world leaders as Bolsonaro, but I'm also thinking about the Belgian government, for example. So yeah, we would be able to change this, but I don't know the people in power if they are willing to change that.
Okay. Yep, I'm almost tempted to ask, what would you need in order to get this heard to them?
What would we need to make it heard to the politicians? A network and a platform. That's also why we're here, I think, to make our voices heard. And I'm in Belgian case, I'm often thinking a different political system where we can have more direct votes and have more have more say in who is gonna lead us, because now we only choose the parliament. We don't choose the ministers who have the most power to change things, but that's maybe from a really political perspective now.
Okay, so and then the role of education in this, how would you kind of educate the people now, the young? What do they need in order to?
Well, I think they need a lot of things, but first they need a political system that funds courses about climate change and society, which I think is a bit changing now. I've heard that in secondary schools there are more courses now about society and climate change. And then we need, of course, just a lot of teachers and people who are educated enough to teach this subjects. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you very much.
Then I will move to NDA. Jette said that it is important to influence the political world and to influence decisions. Were you trained in that sense? Were you trained to develop such capacities or skills? Do you think that you can also influence decision makers? It's a bit difficult because we're not really connected with decision makers. But we try to raise the awareness in a general way. Last year, I have been trained regarding advocacy related to environmental problems. And this training based on advocacy skills was very important. I think that advocacy work will be more valuable and relevant if it comes from young people themselves. And regarding your question about influence on decision makers, it's difficult, as I said, because we are not really in touch and connected with the political world. But we have to raise the awareness of as many people as we can. So, as I said, advocacy work, awareness raising, these are the things, the tools that we can use. Not necessarily regarding climate change, but environmental issues in a broader way. And how and when did you have this training on climate and climate challenges? I'm 22 years of age, and maybe I could have had this training well before, when I was at school. But it's just when I became a member of the youth organization that I was made aware of climate issues, environment in a general sense, and the climate change challenges. We received a lot of explanations on climate adaptation. We have trainings. Trainings are organized, but we are not necessarily able to attend such trainings. At that time, we were getting closer to the COP26, and we had this reflection amongst us. We have social networks, we have decision makers there, and we cannot express our voice. So we need to do something. And that was the starting point. It means that, according to you, the current system is not really dealing with such issues. Even if you want to get involved regarding climate changes and, as you said, advocacy work, you have to be in touch or in contact with political decision makers. I think Nia is with us. Can you hear us? Yes, we can. We made it. Finally, says Nia. And what about you? When were you put in contact in the field of education with climate change? First, I'm at the head of an association, My training is agri-environment. So I have learned everything about climate change when I was at university. We had courses on the impact on environment, climate impact on the environment, and also the impact of human activities on the environment. And this, of course, made me understand that we are facing this climate change issue. And are you angry about adults because they did not inform you more about climate changes? Because you have to discover everything by yourself. As an agronomist, maybe you had this training, but we could do so many things with young people. So are you angry about adults? No, I'm not, because it depends on many other dimensions. We young people, we are aware of climate change, and we decided to pass on the information to our young brothers and sisters. We have to teach about climate change. Basic information about climate change and environment has to be given to our young brothers and sisters. Okay. And what about you? Are you angry about the adults of the previous generation? No, because I think that each generation is facing its own problems. So maybe we should focus more on the future. And regarding education, what is necessary? Involving political decision makers is one of the problems. The fact that are not enough in touch with nature is also a problem. Knowledge on climate change is insufficient, whatever the level, as we just heard. We have to make it easy to understand. So this topic, this subject has to be covered during the educational pathway. We could not simply do as if it did not exist. And we have to make it easy to understand. Young people should be able to see in a clearer way the impact of climate change in the long run. I'm sure that if they would be made aware of that, they would show more interest for this topic. We referred to a holistic approach. Everything is interconnected. In all courses, whether it be mathematics or languages, or this should be included. Indeed. And climate change is also related to social justice. Both have to be covered at the same time. We have another question. What is the role of young people outside of the educational pathway?
Out of the education system in climate change.
En fait, ça me fait penser donc pour mon rôle de mandat de délégué pour la biodiversité, je fais partie du Global
As a delegate of in the framework of my activity as a delegate, we work on transformative education, as we call it. Education goes beyond formal education. And of course, all the networks we have outside of school, for instance, through a sport activity or with a group of friends with whom we are just playing music. Well, here again, we should do more, especially in Belgium, in the Walloon region. We have what we call la Maison des Jeunes, so a place where young people meet. Here, too, we could do a lot. In my region, just south of Namur, well, all young people go to the Maison des Jeunes on a Friday afternoon, and we just go there to party. But we should maybe receive information about climate change there and have, I don't know, activities organized like selling vegetables or fruits from the local surroundings and gather money and, organize something which is practical instead of just having this theoretical information about the increase in greenhouse gases. Or okay, you mean that we have to link this conceptual and theoretical training with something which is more practical? Yes, I think that young people sometimes have the feeling that we do not talk enough about climate change, but at the same time, when you ask a question to young people, they say, well, we are a bit tired of climate change issues. They have the feeling that they have no influence because they are not able to get in touch with the political level, the decision-making level, and they feel sometimes a bit frustrated. So we should provide them with practical tools.
Something about balance between formal education and informal education. So I work at the Green Office in the University of Ghent, and we are now trying to make a student-led class course happen at the university where students teach each other, which is a sustainable way of teaching, because then the students who have to prepare the class are preparing them, and then the others are listening to them. But these courses are like consistent out of a lot of workshops, interactive things. And we are doing this also in summer. We have summer schools where we do things about climate change and like animal welfare. And I also believe in these things, although they are more formal, because a lot of people are in these formal structures already, because you have to do that. So I also believe that young people can make a difference there, and not only in the informal way.
Yeah. Okay, thank you very much, Jutta. Sakina, pour vous, quelle est la place des jeunes en dehors du circuit éducatif face au changement climatique?
And what about you? What could young people do outside of the education system? In the Sahel region, what could young people do outside of the formal education system? As a young people from Sahel, I can say that young people play a major role here in our region. Things have been able to progress because of young people, because we made our voices heard. And we are also involved in a lot of activities regarding protection of the environment and fight against pollution. That's what we are doing with our caravans, because not everyone is aware of climate change. And thanks to our caravans, we raise the awareness of young people, and they ask questions. So what is climate change? What can we do about it? And how can we show resilience? We're almost at the end of this session. We talked about the skills that are needed. We also refer to the impact on political decision makers and all the problems regarding education. What about the solutions. One solution per person, just one solution. So something that you think, well, this is really what we have to do to solve at least part of that challenge of climate change, whether it be at the level of advocacy or very practical things, putting your hands in the soil. So one solution per person. And last question, to what extent are you counting upon youngsters to solve the problem of climate change? So Lino, you are the first. One answer, one solution. What would it be? A very practical solution. It's great to listen to young people and to not only to listen to them, but to involve them. But therefore, we need resources. We need the necessary, we need to have the relevant resources. Fighting against inequalities as well. We have to reach out to young people who are outside of the more mainstream system. So one solution would be to valorize the time that young people can devote to this fight in a very general meaning. So listening to young people and give them the necessary means, the necessary resources. Okay, one answer, one solution for you. Yeah.
I think we should allow youngsters to be more involved, to contribute to the climate change related decisions. There are so many young people who would like to attend the COP event. So I think that this would be a solution, to allow them to be more involved. Or maybe what we would need would be a COP without the heads of state and government, with only youngsters. No, not only with them, but I think that they need to be much more involved.
L'âge moyen de
Or maybe we should try to define a kind of average age to lower it a little bit. Jutta.
So it's hard to find another one, but I would say become a climate activist too, in that sense. Also spread the information that everyone needs to hear and give us the platform what we need, but also give everyone the platform they need, because in the end we're all in this together, although that sounds a bit cliche, but yeah.
And if you bring that to the education, what would then be the solution?
Well, I think spreading information is education too. As a parent, for example, bring your children to the places they need to be. When I learned about climate change, that was because my parents brought me to the Song of the Climate from Nick Balthazar in 2010. That's the first time I learned about climate change. If they wouldn't have brought me there, I maybe would never have known until I was 18, because there was no climate change courses in secondary school. So yeah.
Great. Okay, thank you very much. Ndeye, quelle solution est-ce que vous aimeriez apporter pour les gens ici, autant au niveau de l'éducation?
And what would be your solution?
À plus grande échelle, en passant par les jeunes. Et quand je dis en passant par les jeunes, c'est déjà...
It is important to involve youngsters, and as the others said, allowing them to be more involved. They need to be made aware.
Ça se voit que les jeunes vraiment sont impactés.
We know how much young people are impacted.
Il y aura des actions qui peuvent être menées par le reboisement, par la sensibilisation.
Young people can carry out many small actions that can be very helpful. So, strengthening the youth involvement and participation. All right, thank you very much. Strengthening this climate education. Now, Sakina Bawa, what would be your solution? The solution that you could give to all the experts? Well, of course, I couldn't agree more with my colleague. The empowerment of young people. There isn't such a thing as one single solution. There are many. So I think that we need to empower the young people in the decision making. When I'm speaking of the decision making, I'm also speaking about the capacity building. Those are two avenues, two solutions that are important. Thank you very much indeed, Sakina. As far as education is concerned, what would it require to empower people, young people? Well, it deserves, or it requires technical means, but financial means also. In order to empower young people, you need to provide them with a training. How can they become autonomous, independent, so that they can make decisions for the community? We know that young people are very vulnerable, so capacity building is also key. Thank you very much. And so Céline now. All right, so I would like to pick up on what Lino said. We need to take people seriously. But of course, it would be great if only we could give some hope to young people. And I think of the media. I think that we should address the good news. This would really be great. This would be uplifting also for the youth. Okay. So it's also nice to give hope. So the Mentimeter, let's go back to the Mentimeter. You will see here that most of the people here say that it is the youth responsibilities, but also theirs. So thank you very much indeed to the 6 panelists. All right, so we are about to wrap up. We have here Stéphane, the General Director of EPAFE. You had opened this seminar, and now to conclude both dates. Yes, you can remain there. Yes, it's okay. The young people can remain seated. You have to come up front here. Every young person will sooner or later become an older person, and in each older person you have a young person who maybe fell asleep. So I think that what we are missing is this capacity to be uplifted. So what are the key messages? Well, we saw so many possibilities, so many options to counter climate change, or at least to control climate change. We know that there are so many options, so many possibilities. How are we going to use everything that has been said today to include it in a knowledge generation that will benefit to the development cooperation players? So how are we going to use this information to generate knowledge? We heard so many interesting experiences. As I said in my introduction yesterday, we have really to avoid highlighting our fantasies. Let's focus on concrete and tangible examples. Of course, I could mention many examples, but the Texan Belombo example, for instance, was really great. I was almost moved by what I saw and what I heard. So we saw very concrete examples in the field, projects involving communities and young people, and this is precisely what we need. I was also struck by something else, and we have just heard, the proof of it now with your interventions. Of course, we ask questions to the politicians. We address education, but as Daniela referred to or alluded to, what about the dimension of the economic system and the financial system? Because they could be held accountable for the crisis we find ourselves in now. We are on the 21st of October 2022. The 1st of October 1972, 50 years ago, we had the first Meadows report calculating the limits of growth. We talked about the negative factors on climate change, by the way, but the Meadows report described the scenario, and it was even below the current scenario. Every 10 years it has been updated. In 92, in 2004, the last update was in 2012. So every 10 years or so. What have we done? Almost nothing. So this is a first question. Things were described already 50 years ago in a very scientific way. So what have we done? Well, of course, we know that there are lobbies, the lobbies in the economic system, and they were scared by the conclusions of this Meadows report. And of course, people tried, to pretend it did not exist. So there was, in a way, a kind of counter-propaganda against this report. If we take into account the economic history, or just let's have a look at the automotive sector, cars. Of course, nowadays we try to limit the use of cars, but at the beginning of the 20th century, one should know what was happening there. Nowadays, we say that it's better to use public transportation, but at the beginning of the 20th century, it was public transportation. In all American cities, people would use public transportation. At that time, we saw the emergence of the automotive industry. And what did it do to secure its growth and to secure a maximum profits for those who would invest in the automotive sector, they created huge consortia. This was for the US, but we know what we have here in Europe. So large companies were created. They took over all the public transportation companies. So this is the reason why we are now living in societies where we are all using so much our cars. But you know the consequences. Sometimes you have up to 3 or 4 cars per household. Is this really necessary? But of course, in people's mindset, they know that a car equals freedom. You know this motto, my car, my freedom. So this is just the example of a myth that has a negative impact on climate change. And so I believe that this is what we have to think about. Each and every one of us, the young ones and the less young ones. So let's not forget the economic dimension, this financial dimension. We have finance, labor, people, nature, and climate as well, with those greenwashing approaches. I would like to ask the young people to react to this speech. I think that Lino is really willing to react, isn't it? No? Yes, please use the microphone. I think that degrowth should be taught in schools. There is someone agreeing here.
We absolutely can't forget the big structures that you are saying economically. So we need to be aware and educate people about that too, so that they can change these structures.
All right, Sakina, then. What do you think of what you've just heard? No? Yes, I think that it's important to focus on education. And we need to encourage young people. It's not easy for them, you know, the fight against climate change. It's really not easy. We can be intimidated sometimes. So I think that we really need to encourage young people so that they keep on the fight. Okay, so Stéphane, the link with education now. One thing is for sure, schools, the educational systems are historic productions, so to say. We needed trained people to start companies or to have companies running. Before that, it was a little bit less the case because economy was based on agriculture. So you would learn what you had to do within a family. But what was needed in the production sector would take place in the families of craftsmen, for instance. Knowledge was transmitted from fathers to sons, from mothers to daughters. And so at the beginning of the century, we had the Industrial Revolution linked to the energy transformation, coal to steam, and then electricity. And at that time, we needed skilled and trained persons. To steer a locomotive, for instance, well, you had to have some skills. You had to be able to read instructions. So what do I mean with that?
miroir aussi
The schools, in a way, are a mirror of the companies and the economic world. Now, thankfully, we have teachers who are aware of that, and they try to counterbalance that. And this is the situation we have between education, instruction, technical training, and vocational training. To my knowledge, when I see my daughters in their schools, you have teachers providing climate education, but it's not enough. I think that this should also take place within families, and this is also what I said in my introduction. You know, this climate education shouldn't only take place in schools, but also within the families, and I gave 2 examples. So we were talking about hope. I have an 8-year-old daughter. I'm very happy because her teacher has also a certificate as a nature guide. And so very often the teacher, my daughter's teacher, takes the kids out of the school, and so they do work in outdoor. So the school of the outside is very interesting. By leaving the classrooms, by going outside, by being in touch with the nature, they will be able to feel the pulse of nature. Yes, I think that we should now wrap up. But before concluding, I think that it is important to thank the entire team, Mireille, the technical team, those who contributed to the organization of both have very inspiring days. So congratulations to you, Mireille, your colleagues, and Ruben. Congratulations to you. I also would like to thank Enabel. Thank you very much for hosting us here. Do we pay? Are we paying you? Do we pay you for this? So, as I was saying, thank you very much to Enabel for hosting the seminar. Yes, thank you also to the technical team. I said it already. Well, apparently there hasn't been any issue. Do we have someone from the DGD? No, not today. Thank you to the DGD. Because I think that for 12 years, you have given your trust to this platform, allowing the organization of this of similar events. This is extremely exciting and uplifting. And this is not the end, actually. This is a starting point. Now, I would like to give you the floor. Well, I don't have much to add. I believe that we have been able to address many dimensions linked to climate change. We heard solutions, maybe more challenges emerged, but I really would like to thank you for both very intense afternoons. We shared a lot of content. Thank you very much, and see you soon.